Nebraska's Department of Economic Development will host a community information session for the North and South Omaha Recovery Grant Program.
Later this week, they will also launch a website for the Recovery Grant Program. The grants are for public and private entities that were impacted by the COVID-19 public health emergency.
There are 8 funding categories. You can find those along with information on tomorrow's community meeting on our website, WOWT.com.